All right, so here we are in Parshas Nasai, and we're going to be discussing the mitzvah of Masa Ha'oren V'Kasef, and that is holding or carrying the holy ark by the shoulders. The pasuk says that the Nesiim, the 12 leaders of the 12 tribes, brought special donations to consecrate the Mishkan. They brought sacrifices, and they also brought 12 bulls and 6 wagons. Covered wagons. So there were two Nesiim for every one wagon and one bull they gave. Anyway, so Hashem says to Moshe to take it. He took it.
He didn't have 12 wagons, he had 6 wagons.
6 wagons, exactly.
Each one had the same
2 bulls.
Two.
Exactly. 2 bulls per wagon.
Two.
Anyway, he gave the wagons to the Levium. 2 of the wagons went to Bnei Gershon. They carried the curtains. 4 of the wagons, with 8 of the bulls, went to the Bnei Merari because they carried the actual pillars and the sockets much heavier. Now the pasuk says, "V'levnei Kahas loy nasan." To the sons of Kahas he did not give. Ki avodas hakodesh aleihem b'kasef yiso, because the holy work was upon them, and they carried it on their shoulders. That is to say, if you look back at the end of Parshas Bamidbar, it describes exactly what the Levium did. And it describes how they covered the Aron, how they covered the Mizbeach, how they covered the other Mizbeach. Actually, I haven't seen them discuss the other Mizbeach, the Shulchan. And how they carried it. Some was badav. Each of them had staves, poles with which to carry it. So they didn't need the cattle or the wagons because they actually carried it by their shoulders. And the Rambam and the Sefer HaChinuch and others count this as one of the 613 mitzvahs. That whenever the Aron is transported, it has to be transported by the shoulders and never on a wagon. By the Levium, that is. So,
Could the Levium be on a wagon? Or
that I don't know. The idea behind the mitzvah is, the Sefer HaChinuch says, that because the Torah is what makes us a special nation, what separates us from all the other nations, so it's only appropriate that we show it special respect. And we don't just put it on a wagon, we hold it personally. And who holds it personally? Levium. They represent the highest level of the people.
so how do we do it?
How?
I mean, I guess it carried itself, and it's supposed to be.
It did. That's also true.
I mean, you're talking about carrying something like that through hot desert, many miles.
That's true.
I mean, anytime you carry anything, even if it's light, it would become.
That's true, but it did carry itself, like we'll see.
It weighed to 8 tons.
I don't know how much it weighed, but it definitely it wasn't light. It wasn't pure gold. It was also wood.
Themselves weighed it.
Right. The luchos were heavy. Yep. I mean, they also carried themselves, like we read in the Medrash. Anyway, the point is,
they're on inside the ocean.
yes.
So they carry it.
So the point is that really the pasuk doesn't specify the Aron. Pasuk says, because of you so they carried holy artifacts, which includes all of the holy artifacts that we read about in last week's parsha, with the kiyar and the mizbeches and the menorah and the shulchan. However, those are not listed here because it's understood that they were only transported in the Mishkan. They didn't have to be transported from then on in any specific way. In the Mishkan, in the desert, that's when they had these rules. But after that, those rules disappeared for those Canaan. The special honor that is accorded to the Oren, that's the one that lasted for all generations, as we're going to learn now, that it remained even in Eretz Yisrael and so on. It wasn't a special thing just for the desert.
Well, imagine also the hides, the skins that they put on top, were all connected. That's a lot of weight too. And they couldn't fit in just one wagon. They must have taken it apart.
Actually, speaking of the skins, I just want to go back to the skins for a minute, because there is a discussion about the skins. It says, "V'lo yira v'lo
This one would be heavy.
v'lo liras kevalas hakodesh v'mesu." Shouldn't appear that they come and look as the holy is inserted, lest they die. Looking at the Aron is dangerous because it's too holy. Like in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you saw what happened when they looked. You saw that.
That's when they opened it, yeah.
When they opened the Ark and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, so all the people, their faces melted away. It was like an atomic bomb.
Oh, it looked.
Whatever.
I mean,
Of course, you can't bring a proof from the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but nevertheless.
Somewhat connected with the Torah. Had some Torah training.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg, he harkened back to his Cheder days. Anyway, the point is that it's dangerous to look at something too holy, like we see Moshe Rabbeinu, and he covered his face when the Shekhinah was present. But however, the Rambam, interestingly enough, does not count that as a mitzvah l'doros. The whole idea of covering it, as it's described in great detail in the end of Parshas Bamidbar, which cover for which artifact and so on. According to the Rambam, that was a special thing in the desert, but it didn't apply afterwards. And the Mefarshim discuss how the Rambam knows that was just then, and this mitzvah is for all times, and so on. But in fact, we see in the pasuk.
But the Mishkan continued until and through Shiloh, right?
Well, it wasn't transported on a regular basis, but it was kind of a Mishkan. It was kind of a Mishkan, but yeah.
The one went from Shiloh to the few other cities that went to before.
Yes.
Had to be transported.
Exactly. We're going to learn about that. Yep, correct. So, in fact, we see that this mitzvah, in terms of the Aron, did apply for all generations. We see that from what happened when David HaMelech forgot this mitzvah and didn't keep it. So just before we get to that, just to talk a little bit about carrying and how it worked, because you mentioned that it was heavy and so on, and it carried those that carried it. So actually during the desert, it appeared that the Levim were carrying it, the Bnei Kahas. But in fact, it was the Aron that was carrying them. But this became apparent when they crossed the Yarden, and the careful reading of the Psukim, the way it's understood by the Mefarshim, is that after Klal Yisrael crossed on the Yarden River, the Kohanim who were then carrying the Aron were carried by it over the Yarden River. So that's when Klal Yisrael actually saw the miracle that really only the Levim knew about until then. Anyway, on that occasion we see it was the Kohanim carrying the Aron. And the same thing is when they walked around Yericho, that it was the Kohanim that were carrying the Aron.
I can imagine because there were only two Kohanim at the time. They had children, didn't mention what they were, helping out, and it was
Aaron. By the time they came to conquer Yericho, it was 40 years later. Elazar and his son probably had grandchildren by then. Pinchas had children, maybe grandchildren too.
They had 19 stops, so they had 19. It was 42 stops, but they went from place to place to place. So
I'm saying in the course of 40 years, there were definitely many.
They couldn't have.
In the desert, it was the Bnei Kahas that were carrying.
But
it was not the Kohen.
I'm not talking about the carrying. I'm talking about the wrapping.
Yeah, they wrapped it.
The covering had to be done by 20.2.
Yeah.
So it was a heavy step.
Well, they started out with two, but they had children and grandchildren. But they did their job.
So they did their job. They had to be supernatural for that purpose.
Well, it is what it is. So the point is that there is a little bit of an argument here as to who should carry the Aron in Eretz Yisrael.
Who should actually carry it across?
Who should actually carry it across? The Rambam holds that once they got into Eretz Yisrael, it was supposed to be carried by the Kohanim, not the Levim. The Ramban holds on the contrary. Excuse me, not on the contrary. The Ramban holds that it could be carried by either Kohanim or Levim. Kohanim are also Levim, but it did not have to be carried by the Kohanim. The occasions that we find that the Kohanim carried it was a special occasion, crossing the Yarden, bringing the walls of Yericho tumbling down. By David, the second time after he made the mistake that we'll learn about, he wanted the Kohanim. It was a special thing, but it didn't have to be. It was the exception. It could be Levium also. Because why should the mitzvah change? The mitzvah is for the Levium. Of course, Kohanim are also Levium, fine, they could do it, but who said they have to do it? So the Ramban says that it remains unchanged. And then there's a medrash that in fact says that it has to be the Levium, specifically Levium, not the Kohanim. So it's a kind of a three-way machlokes. The Rambam says Kohanim, not Levium. The medrash says Levium, not Kohanim, and the Ramban says either one.
That would probably have something to do with the fact that Aaron did the golden calf, but the Levium never sinned.
Okay, I hear it. He wasn't a Kohen at the time, but I hear
That's
it.
why they were, God said, these are my people.
I hear it. I'm not sure. So let's talk a little bit about the story with David HaMelech. So it all started many years beforehand with Chafni and Pinchas. Chafni and Pinchas were the sons of Eli HaKohen. Unfortunately, they did not follow in their father's ways. The pasuk says they slept with women. It's understood to mean that they made the women stay longer in Shiloh, so they were separated from the husbands for longer, so that's considered like they slept with them. In any case, they also ate from the meat of the korban before the blood was sprinkled. They were behaving in ways that was considered a chilul Hashem. Hashem spoke to Eli through Shmuel and rebuked Eli for not rebuking his children. Very dire prophecies about what would happen to his children. Anyway, unfortunately, Eli, even though he did tell them off, but in the end of the day, he didn't come down hard enough on them. And they continued in their ways. And unfortunately, Hashem decided that they were going to die. So how did it happen? The Bnei Israel were at that time having wars with the Plishtim. So the Bnei Israel decided in a particular war that they were going to bring the Oren of Hashem with them to the battlefield. Now, this is not something the Torah allows. There was an Aron, according to the Medrash, that did go with them to the battlefield. And this is the original Aron that Moshe Rabbeinu made when he came down from the mountain the first time on Yom Kippur. He had the luchas. He had to put them somewhere. So he made a box.
I thought he put them in the same box.
No, he made his own box. Now, he also gathered the Yidden together and said, listen, we need to build a Mishkan. And Betzalel certainly did that, but that took time. So in the interim, until the Aron Kodesh and the Krub and everything was ready, it stayed in Moshe Rabbeinu's box. Then when they transferred the Luchos to Betzalel's box, to the Aron with the Kruvim and whatnot, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, they put the Shivrei Luchos, they put the broken Luchos back in Moshe Rabbeinu's box. Some say that Luchos V'Shivra Luchos Menachem Aron, that both of them were in the new Aron, in Betzalel's Aron. But some say, like I mentioned, that the broken Luchos were in Moshe Rabbeinu's Aron, and that was the Aron that would go out with them to war.
Where was that happening?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I guess somewhere in the Mishkan, but I don't know where. Not sure. So here, the Bnei Israel decided that they were going to bring in the Aron of Hashem. And they knew that the Aron of Hashem can bring about a miracle. Because they remember the story with Yericho. The Aron of Hashem was carried around and around and around 7 times. One time every day, 7 times on the 7th day, Shabbos. And then the walls came tumbling down. So they knew that it was a pretty powerful weapon. So they were going to bring it in. Anyway, they brought it to the battlefield. And as soon as they brought it, they started to cry out in triumph, like, we for sure won. No question about it. which was unfortunately not the correct reaction, because the whole point of the Aron is the connection to Hashem and to the Shekhinah, not to believe that the Aron is some kind of hocus pocus magic. And if they think that they won because the Aron is there, on the contrary, they're not going to daven to Hashem. That's what happened. They shouted in triumph as if they already won. That means that they felt that they didn't even have to daven. This is the opposite of the way it was in Yericho, when they walked around the city silently for 7 days, once every day, and then 7 times the 7th day, not a word, blowing the shofars, but not making any noise. And this is all the while the people of Yericho were up on the top and they were shouting down curses at them and whatever else. They were silent. And what does the silence mean? The silence means they were davening to Hashem. Davening, silent supplication to Hashem. Only after the walls came tumbling down, that's when they shouted out and they went running in. But until then, you have to daven. Having the Aron is no guarantee. It's Hashem that's going to win the war. And for that to happen, you have to daven and be worthy. Unfortunately, Klal Yisrael did not look at it that way at the time of the story we're talking about. And they believed it was some just kind of magic thing. Shekhinah is here, Aron is here, we're going to win. And of course, that was not to be. In fact, I'll read the pasuk. When the Plishtim heard the cries of exultation from the Jewish camp, they said, what's going on here? And they heard that the ark of Hashem had come into the camp. The Plishtim were afraid. They said, Oilanu, ki lo yaisa kazais eshmal Hashem. The Jews never did this. Who's going to help save us from this powerful God? This is the God that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the desert. The plagues were actually in Mitzrayim, of course, not in the desert, but some say Bamidbar means bedibur, with his word. So they said, Philistines, be men. Pentavru living, because if you lose, you're going to be slaves to the Hebrews, just like they were slaves to you. So be men and fight. And that's what happened. The Plishtim fought. The Jewish people lost the battle. Each man ran to his tent. There was a great makkah on the Jewish people. 30,000 people were killed. The Aron of Hashem was taken. The two sons of Eli were killed, Chafni and Pinchas. Now, by the way, Chafni and Pinchas didn't go to battle on a regular day. They went to battle because this is all set up by Hashem. They were supposed to die. So Hashem put in the people's minds they should bring the Aron. And who's going to carry the Aron? The Kohanim. So that's why they were in the battlefield, and that's how they ended up dying. Anyway, the pasuk says that a man of Binyamin ran from the battlefield and he came to Shiloh, ripped clothing and so on, and he's the one that told Eli the sad news. Eli was 98 years old. He was a big man. He was heavy. When he heard the news, he got such a shock. He fell backwards. He broke his neck, passed away. This is the 10th of Iyar. By the way, some people fast on the 10th of Iyar because of this, this event. Anyway, the point is, the Medrash says that the man of Binyamin was actually Shaul, who later became Shaul HaMelech. And before he ran back to tell Eli what happened, he ran up to the Aron, he ran into the Plishti camp very quickly, and he snatched the luchos from Goliath's hands. Don't ask me what Goliath was doing with the luchos. I guess he was checking them out. He snatched them from Goliath's hands, and he ran back 42 kilometers. He ran back from the Plishtim to Shiloh with the luchos.
How could you do that?
How? Listen, people can run.
Now when the carry's on weighs that much.
Well, there was, we know.
I mean, you get weighed down.
It didn't weigh a thing. It was like a feather in Moshe Rabbeinu's hands, presumably in Shaul's hands also. Anyway, the fact is that nevertheless, according to the Medrash, it didn't last long because the actual city of Shiloh was destroyed by the Plishtim and they got the luchos back. So there were the luchos in the Plishti's possession. And of course, things did not go well for the Plishtim.
Diseases.
Exactly, their idol fell down, its head came off, its feet came off, and then they started getting diseases. They got hemorrhoids, they got plagues of mice.
So they gave it back.
Anyway, exactly, it went from city to city, and the plagues followed it. So they decided they're going to give it back. They put it on a new wagon. They put to carry the wagon. They put mother cows, young nursing cows that had never taken a wagon before, and they put the baby calves that are supposed to be nursing on the side to see if they would go to their calves like is the natural thing to do, or if they would go back bringing it to the Bnei Israel. That would be a sign from Hashem, and that's what they did. They went, even though they were mooing like out of yearning for their babies, they nevertheless went straight up the hill and brought it back to Beis Shan, I think it is. Anyway, and they brought with it a mincha, a present to Hashem as an offering. They made golden hemorrhoids. Don't ask me what that looks like. As well as golden mice. One hemorrhoid for each of the 5 major Plishti cities, and one golden mouse for all of the cities, even the smaller cities. That's what the pasuk says. Anyway, they came to Beit Shemesh, sorry, not Beit Shan. They came to Beit Shemesh. The people saw the Aron. They were very happy. They took the wagons, they split them open, and they used it as wood to burn the sacrifice, which they sacrificed these cows. Okay. Anyway, all of these golden artifacts, by the way, they put in a special box, and it stayed near the Aron. It stayed near the Aron until the Aron was hidden away, actually. Anyway, unfortunately, the people of Beit Shemesh did not treat the Aron so properly. They looked, some say they looked at it, shouldn't have, they should have covered it. They kept on working, they should have bowed. They spoke not respectfully to it. They said, what got you angry that you left us, and what got you happy that you came back? As if, they can talk so.
That's respectful.
That's not respectful to talk that way to Hashem. You get it back, you thank Hashem. You don't speak that way. So 70 people and 50,000 people died. The 70 were the Sanhedrin and 50,000 other people. So it was a pretty serious thing, and therefore they sent it off. They didn't want to keep the Aron there. They sent it to Kiryas Ye'arim. Anyway, it stayed there for a very long time. 20 years it stayed there. All right, fast forward 20 years, and David HaMelech wanted to bring back the Aron. I shouldn't say bring back, because Yerushalayim was the new capital. He had just conquered it with Yoav's help, the whole story, and he was going to make that his capital. And he wanted to, establish that as a fact and bring the Aron to Yerushalayim and eventually build the Beis HaMikdash. So the pasuk describes what happened. But we have to backtrack a little bit and mention that while David HaMelech was running away from Shaul, he said a pasuk that Hashem did not take kindly towards. He said a pasuk, Zmiras hayili chukecha beveis megurai, that your mitzvahs were for me like a song in my places that I dwelt. Meaning to say that David had a lot of trouble. Wherever he went, he was running away, he's being chased after. And the fact that he had the Torah, that gave him chizuk and so on. But he called it a song. And the Gemara says in Saitas, David's Meir's Karisalo, you're calling the Torah a song. I mean, the Torah is a very serious thing. You have to learn it, you have to review it, you have to take it very seriously. It's not a song, it's not a joke, it's not something that you can consider not so significant. And this was considered a disrespectful way to speak about the Torah. And unfortunately, Hashem said, you think it's such an easy thing, like a song. I'm going to make you forget something that even Tinokus Shel Beis Rabban know. Even school children who learn the Chumash, they don't learn the Mishnah, they learn the Chumash, and they know Avodas HaKodesh Aleim Bakosef Yiso, that it has to be carried on the shoulders. I'm going to make you forget that pasuk. And of course, that's what happened. So, got to find a pasuk that's in Shmuel Beis. Exactly.
This is where the wagon starts the top when the guy touches it. Nice.
Got it.
So,
Okay, here it is. David gathered 30,000 young men among the Bnei Israel. What is this referring to? Some say it's referring to giving them smicha. Give them smicha on that day. Some say Vayosef Oid means he continued and he added, and then did 30,000. So 30,000 for each. There was Vayosef is 30,000, Oid is 30,000, and Shloshim is 30,000. 90,000 people gave smicha on one day, as he was going to bring the Aron to the Beis HaMikdash. I was just wondering if this is connected to the 70s of Canaan that died when the Aron came. He was trying to counter that by making Canaan, so to speak, in a big way on the day that the Aron was supposed to come.
Does that mean he said it verbally, or he actually had to lean on each one?
No, the leaning was only Moshe to Yeshua. After that, it was just verbal. You didn't have to be present. You could send smicha to somebody with a letter.
So why we have a story of like the Rambavo had to like sneak out somewhere?
It was smicha. He was going to give them smicha. He wasn't going to lean on them.
Uh-huh.
He gave them smicha. So the point is that David went with the people of Yehuda to bring the Aron of Hashem. Which Aron of Hashem? I mean, we know there's more than one Aron, according to the opinion we mentioned before. I'll tell you which Aron. Asher Nikra Shem Hashem Tzedakos Yeshav Akurim Alav. The Aron that is called by Hashem's name, the master of the legions, who is enthroned upon the Kruvim. The one with the Kruvim, the real one, so to speak. They put the Aron of Hashem on a new wagon, and they carried from the house of Avinadav in Giva. Uzzah and Achyoi, the sons of Avinadav, were leading the new wagon. They carried from Avinadav. Actually, just to give you some background here, the Medrash says that when David gave smicha on that day, he gave smicha to 90,000 men, but not Achitophel. He left Achitophel out. Achitophel wasn't so happy about that. So when they started walking with the Aron,
Achitophel didn't have smicha from before.
I don't know. So when they started walking with the Aron, so like the Kohanim were like lifted up and thrown to the ground. So he went to Achitophel. Achitophel was a very wise man. He said, what's this about? Achitophel said, why don't you ask the people you gave smicha to? They can help you. So David said, I asked them, and they don't know. So anyway, Achitophel said, you know what? Bring a carbon. Every few steps, bring a carbon. But that's not really what it was. The issue was that it wasn't supposed to be in a wagon. So,
in Perkei it says that he learned two things from him, right?
Yeah.
They call him his teacher. That's the two things he learned.
What are the two things that he learned? Well, the Gemara says one thing he learned from him was that you're allowed to erase Hashem's name to save the world. The whole story with the water that was coming up to flood the world. Another thing he learned from his Vesel Kim Mahalach Baruch, you have to walk with trepidation in shul. Can't run in shul.
And those two things he learned, he called him his teacher.
That's what it says. Anyway, The point is that David and the Bnei Israel were masachkim, were dancing in front of Hashem, b'chol atzev roshim, with all the reed instruments, kinoros, nevolim, lyres, and harps, supim, tambourines, mena'anim, timbrels, and tselim, cymbals. They came to Gorin Nochon, and Uzzah sent his hand out to the Aron of Hashem and grabbed onto it because it was starting to fall. Kishomte Haboker was coming away from the cattle. Hashem got angry at Uzzah, and Hashem smote him al hashal. Shal means because of his mistake. And he passed away there with the Aron of Hashem. Hashem got, David HaMelech was upset because of what happened. He called the place Peretz Uzzah. And he was afraid to even bring it into his personal domain. Instead, he had it placed in the home of Oved Edom Hagiti. We'll get back to Oved Edom in a minute. The point is, David HaMelech was made to forget this pasuk. But the question is...
Yeah, if he's forgetting, but he has all kinds of advisors and calling...
Exactly. The question is, when all is said and done, did he actually forget the pasuk? Did he simply forget the pasuk? And even if he forgot the pasuk, what about everybody else? What about the 90,000 people who had smicha? What about the Leviim themselves who were present? What about the Achitophel himself? So what's going on here? So there are different ways of understanding David HaMelech's mistake. It was a mistake. I'm not saying it wasn't, that's clear. But what was the mistake? So some say the mistake was that he thought the rules of transporting
only applied back then.
Exactly, only applied back then, which is not so far off, because the Meforshim say that it only applied to the Shulchan back then.
They say the same thing about the counting. When he counted the people. So they said because he thought it was from back then. God made him forget, and they thought it was from.
Really?
The Rambam says that, yeah. Same exact thing. They said the Rambam said the reason he counted because he had to do a little bit more tshuva, and they wanted to make him forget, so therefore he made him forget to count. And he thought, but he forgot that he thought it wasn't for this time. He thought it was the same emotion.
Okay.
So
I don't remember that, but I hear.
The same idea.
I hear. And the point is that David HaMelech wasn't so far off, considering that the Mefarshim say that the mitzvah of carrying the shulchan, the inner mizbeach, the outer mizbeach, the kiyar, the menorah, that was only in the desert that it had to be carried on the shoulders. After that, if they had to transport them for some reason, they didn't have that rule. So in the Oren is different. Okay, he didn't realize. Also, like we said, according to the Rambam, the whole thing about not looking, always keeping it covered, was another thing for the desert. It wasn't the mitzvah for all generations. Maybe it's not respectful, but it was not it's not one of the 613 mitzvahs according to the Rambam. Why? Because it was for that time. So again, it's not so far off. So another shot that I read is that he thought that it's only when it's a official transportation, that is, so to speak, from Hashem. Hashem says, Aaron moves, the Shekhinah moves, the cloud moves, when it's like a whole procession that is being done by Hashem, but when it's being moved by private people, doing their own thing, these rules don't apply. Here's an interesting thing.
Put in the cart, would they Levium?
That I don't know.
That would be a problem too.
I think they were Levium, actually.
Okay.
I think they were.
Levium.
I think these two were Levium. I think Uzzah and Achioi, the sons of Nadav, were Levium. But here's the thing. This is just going back to the pshat that they only had to do it in the desert, perhaps. Here's a little explanation that I read why they should only have to do it in the desert. So the thing is that the wagons were given by different people. Like in shul, this mezuzah donated by so-and-so, and this classroom donated by so-and-so, and everybody's so proud of their donation. So the Nesiim were proud of their wagons and their oxen, which by the way didn't die. 40 years, a very long life for the oxen, but it was a miraculous thing. They lived, and the wagons stayed good. Anyway, the issue is that in order that nobody should feel bad, they would use the wagons for different things. They would switch it around. So nobody should feel bad. Oh, it's not fair. My wagon is only used for these curtains, not those curtains, and these sockets and not those sockets. This is holier. They would switch it around. So that way the Nesiim would be happy.
On one hand, there's a lot. Everybody has a different job. The king can't do everybody else's job.
Yeah, but it doesn't say anywhere which wagon has to carry which one. So they would make people happy. They would make people happy. But when it comes to holy artifacts, there's a rule of Mailen Bakodesh Rein. It's used for the Aron. You can't switch it around. Now, if that's the case, the other Nesiim are going to feel bad. You're going to choose one wagon belonging or donated by two Nesiim. And the other Nesiim are never, ever going to be able to have their wagon be used to transport the Arn of Hashem. So that's why Hashem said, okay. The holy things you carry, don't put them in any wagon. Don't make anybody feel bad. Okay, that was then when they had wagons. Now in Eretz Yisrael, there's no wagons. There's no Mishkan. I mean, there's no Mishkan being transported in that way. So that doesn't apply. That's one of the arguments that is made. Anyway, but it was a mistake, like we mentioned, and Hashem was angry. It was really David's mistake, but Uzzah is somewhat also considered.
I'm confused because first you say Hashem made him make the mistake, and then Hashem was angry because he made the mistake, but he made him make the mistake.
Right, but he caused it to himself. It's called in the Gemara, you know what I mean? If you start off doing something negligent, and then something beyond your control happens, you're still responsible because you started. You see what I'm saying? So it was considered his fault.
Nothing happens without Hashem doing it.
No, we have free choice. His original thing was his mistake. I'm saying the original thing was his mistake, so he's responsible.
Hashem has a history. The Tzadas was also pre-planned. We got punished for it. Every sin we do is.
It's a bit dangerous. It's a bit dangerous, but I hear you.
It's hard to understand all this process.
It happens every time a person sins. It's part of Hashem's plan, and he still gets angry at us.
No. So the bottom line is that Peretz was also part of the sin. Sorry, Uzzah. Because, first of all, he shouldn't have touched it. According to the Medrash, it wasn't actually falling. It was actually suspended in midair. It had fallen off the wagon, but it wasn't falling to the ground, which is, in fact, the way it's supposed to be.
Was there enough time for him to notice that?
Sometimes you make a
should have known that from
history.
Right. He should have known that from history. Put it this way. When you're dealing with something as holy as the Aron, very small mistakes can be very costly. So he should have realized, maybe he should have thought about it before. The fact that he didn't think about it before, even though it was like a reaction, but the fact that he put himself in that position without realizing beforehand is a problem. In general, this whole situation was not such a respectful situation in terms of the fact that it says one of them was walking in the front with his back to the Aron. One of them was in the back. Even the Plishtim didn't do that. The Plishtim walked behind the Aron. None of them walked in the front. They didn't want to show their back to the Aron.
They were afraid of it.
So this was considered also somewhat disrespectful. I mean, in fact, in the Gemara it says one opinion that he actually urinated in front of the Aron. That's pretty bad. So why would have done that? But anyway, in any case, he had his part in the sin also, and unfortunately, he passed away. Anyway, the story goes that in the house of Oived Edom Agiti, so the Aron was treated very respectfully. He had a special place for it. He kept it clean. He swept it, and so on and so forth. And it was only there for 3 months. And Hashem blessed Oived Edom and his household. And all of his daughters and his daughters-in-law had septuplets, 6 at once. So they realized that it's giving him a big bracha, and they decided it was time to take it back to Yerushalayim. Now this time,
Those days that was considered a bracha.
that was considered bracha. It still is. Maybe
Maybe
it's a hard bracha to handle.
I don't know how people would be.
It's a hard bracha to handle, but it's a bracha.
What they have in Egypt, they had 9 sets of 6 or something like that.
9?
Yeah.
Who says 9?
I think the share from Rabbi Frank Shapiro.
9 sets.
They coincided with the lesson in the paragraph, and the lesson, and when it talks about the birth, it says that it comes out to 54, which is 9, because they had 9 times 60.
Okay.
The whole thing from that. But
all right, maybe.
Each one had 9 sets of 6.
Maybe. Anyway, this time they got it right. And the way it's described here is, actually it doesn't say the Kohanim were carrying it. Very strange. Oh, Noisei Aron Hashem. Noisei Aron Hashem Shishat Tzadim. It was when those carrying the Aron walked 6 steps, they sacrificed a ox and a fatted ox. But in Divrei Hayamim, when it describes the same story, it gives us some greater detail. And it actually points out that it was carried by actual, I think it's Levium. I'm just going to do the story here. Give me a moment.
Some of these, it's unbelievable. Some of these things, just it's amazing that it's like a big soap opera.
Yeah.
Well, this and that, and how everybody is defining, not doing this, not doing that, and then God makes these guys die. It's kind of the ark, and then but the Philistines who counted guys, so they get punched for plagues, and then they get it back, and it goes back.
Okay, here it is. In Divrei Hayamim, Aleph Tes Zayin Yud Aleph. V'ika David letzadok lo yasa kohen Elohim lo ri laso yoel shemaya Eliyav aminodov. V'yem lamatem Moshe avis lavim iskadshu atem acheichem va'alisim es Aron Hashem l'kei Yisrael el achinoisai loi. Ki lema berishoyna lo yatem parts Hashem l'keinu bonu ki lo yidarashnu kamishpat. Es kadosh Levim akoyanim lahalis Aron Hashem l'kei Yisrael v'isu b'nei Levim es Aron Alikim kasher tzivu Moshe k'dvar Hashem b'akseifam b'moitais aleim. Here in Divrei Hayamim, it's very clear that they corrected their mistake. I'll just say the English. David Kofat Tzaddik and Aviyasa the Kohanim, the Leviim, Uriel, Asiya, Yoel, Ishmai, Eliel, and Aminadab, he said to them, you, the family heads of the Leviim, you and your kinsmen sanctify yourselves and bring up the Arn of Hashem, God of Israel, to the place I prepared for it. For the first time, it was not you. Hashem, our God, dealt harshly with us, for we did not seek him out as was proper. So the Kohanim and the Leviim sanctified themselves to bring up the Arn of Hashem. The sons of Leviim carried down Hashem's command in accordance with the word of Hashem on their shoulders by staffs upon them. Okay, so here he corrected the mistake, and they brought it in, and that's where it stayed. So, what can we learn from all this?
Torah?
Sorry?
How do you transport a Torah?
How do you transport a Torah? Well, first of all, I did find a very interesting line in the Minchas Chinuch. In the Chinuch, sorry. He says, when it comes to transporting a Torah, we don't have this rule. that it has to be the Kohanim of the Levim. But Ashrei, a person who does.
Really?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It sounds like it is. It is a Maila to have only a Kohen or a Levi carry a Sefer Torah. No,
Does
as a
that
Levi.
mean every time you open Aron Kodesh, or when you have to take it a long distance?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
carrying it.
but
What's the
it
difference?
doesn't have to be. Yeah, Shabbos, they always have a coin.
No,
Usually
they
the
don't.
Chazan does. Because
Usually the
then it was,
Chazan,
you know,
Yeah,
or
the
the
Chazan
Rav.
takes it out, or
Yeah, it's a big chiddush.
or
He
the
doesn't
Beit
say
Hillel.
you have to. He doesn't say you have to. He
Yeah.
says, but if you do, wow, that's a high level.
Well, it's the same thing as the coin. The coin should be the one benching, and the coin should be one doing. That doesn't always happen there.
No, that it says in Halacha,
Yeah,
but
but
here
they
it doesn't
pass on a
say.
lot of times.
Actually, I just want to mention the last time that it's mentioned about the Levim carrying the Aron is, of course, before the destruction of the first piece of Mikdash, when Yoshiyahu tells the Levim that they should carry it for the last time, because he instructed them to hide it. And he said, this is it, this is your last time, there's no more. Which means, not that the mitzvah doesn't apply, of course, the mitzvah still applies, but he was telling them as a historical fact that it's being hidden away, it's not coming out anytime soon. So this is it. But again, he had the Levium do it.
Because they were still doing it, so of course, basically.
Till then, it was Mikdash. That was the
So
final
that's the
trip.
desert you were saying before there wasn't.
Well, that was a mistake David made. It was not correct. The correct thing is that it has to be done for all times by the Levium and so on. So in terms of transporting a Sefer Torah, so in the first place we transport it on our bodies, not putting it down, just like like you weren't supposed to transport it on a wagon. So it's best not to transport a Sefer Torah without holding it.
Does that mean even in Aron Kodesh, or only if it's open, uncovered?
You mean if you're transporting a whole Aron Kodesh? Is that what you mean?
Or if you have a
not
mobile
sure.
shul, I don't know. Does that mean? I mean, could you have a mobile shul?
They have mobile shuls. They have
So
Muncie, New York.
Obviously, you don't have somebody carrying the Torah.
They daven, they daven there.
So is there a difference if it's in the Aron Kodesh or outside?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
And what happens if one person has to transport? I guess one person can't really do it in the car. Can't drive.
Yeah, if there's no choice, again, it's not an actual Aron Kodesh, it's not the Aron, and so on. Oh, I forgot to say one answer for David. I'll get back to it in a minute. So it actually says if you need to, you can put it down, and as long as it's in a safe situation, you know what I mean, strapped in, it's not going to fall, whatever. So you can do that. But just to go back to David, I read. What did I read it? I think the Alshach actually. The Alshach says that the reason David made a mistake is because the luchas were not in the Aron. I guess he follows an opinion that maybe Shaul saved them, and that's it. And there was the Aron, just the Aron, not the luchas. And in fact, it was a mistake because the Aron itself has kedusha. Also, it's not just about the luchas. But David HaMelech, thought that it was just about the luchas. Interesting chat. What else can I say? I must say I don't have that much more to say about transporting a Sefer Torah. There is more to say, but I don't have it on my fingertips, so we're going to have to stop here.
Obviously, when you dedicate a Torah, they walk with it. Is it always a coin of lady?
No, definitely not. Whoever carries it, carries it.
Yeah.
Actually, just to go back to the Plishtim, I forgot to mention, the Plishtim were not punished. Because first of all, they didn't know any better than to put it in the wagon. Second of all, the Plishtim are not supposed to carry it because they're not Jewish. It's not respectful for a person not Jewish to carry it. So for them, their best option was to put it in a new wagon, which was not used for any idolatrous purpose, and so on and so forth. They did the best that they could do, but the Bnei Yisrael should have known better.
I mean, they were punished for taking it. But
Right, not for giving it back, though.
Well, it's a funny thing because they showed great respect for it because it's like a